There's a story coming out in the NCAA that NCAA wants to now let players, well, it's right now in the voting. And why don't you tell the fans a little bit about this?
So right now, the NCAA is considering an option where players of any sport, no matter what it is, would get royalties off of their names and likeness. That would include the jersey sales. That would include any sponsorships they have for commercials.
Is that for football and basketball?
It's for every sport. Any sport that has name and likeness associated with it, because obviously the NCAA is the governing body of everything within Division I, and obviously there's going to be more sports, obviously like football, that'll get more than others, but it's with the whole NCAA. Any Division I school, any FBS and FCS football teams would be included in this. So they can make money off their names and likenesses. So what Reggie Bush was stripped of his Heisman for, what Johnny Manziel...
Does he get it back?
We'll see. What Johnny Manziel was criticized for when he was there will now potentially become legal. So we'll see on how that develops. And it probably is that first step kind of thing to these college athletes getting money. Now, whether it's a fair distribution, whether it's a distribution that will cause controversy, we'll see. Whether it's a distribution that could cause controversy with the companies too, we'll see. But it's definitely a step that a lot of these college athletes and, again, these programs want to take in order to get these athletes money.
It's a very interesting story. And my argument to this is if this has been going on for years, and there are a lot of players that were trying to make money on jersey sales, trying to make money on autograph sales. Now all of a sudden the NCAA, because I believe that a lot of these players, and I'm not even talking about football, a lot of these basketball players with the NBA, with the G League, they're starting to plan to go and play in the G League instead of going to play for a college team, because they can make $500,000, up to $500,000. They can make endorsement deals right now with the G League. So why would you go and play for a college basketball team when you can make all your money right now and then have the opportunity a year later to go into the NBA? So I think the NCAA have to find a way where these players can bring in revenue, where they can stay and play for a college basketball team.
Well, that will always
a football team.
That will always be a dilemma too, though, with the G League versus the college basketball, just because, again, the G League also has a lot of guys that were already drafted into the NBA that are, again, essentially in an informal minor league system too, just like NFL practice squads, if they actually compete. So will that help or hurt their development too is another question, rather than going to play where you're a top option on.
Why, do you think it would hurt their development?
It could, depending on...
Why, because they're making money?
The level of competition.
If anything, that'll help them, because they'll want to play hard, because they're going to make more money for autographs or make more money for jersey sales.
Sure, but it also is, to an extent, could hurt them if they're not ready for that kind of thing right away, if their body's still growing into it.
Give me a break.
If they're an 18-year-old.
These kids have been primed and ready to go when they're 15 years old. Their parents have pushed them. If their parents think that they're going to be superstars at a young age, they've been pushing them. They go to all these camps. They go to travel teams. They absolutely are ready to make money. I beg to differ on that.
Not make money. I'm talking about the level of competition.
But the competition making money is going to build the level of competition. It always happens. You're telling me right now, if LeBron James could have made money going to play for college basketball and signing and getting autographs and jersey sales and stuff like that, you don't think he would have went and played 1 year in college ball?
No, I'm not even talking about college. I'm talking about...
But that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, I thought you were talking about players into the G League.
No, I'm talking about players that, the NCAA is trying to figure out a way for these players to make some money where they can come and play college ball or come and play college football. Because I understand how the NCAA are trying to keep... With the NFL will not let you come and play NFL football until really your junior league.
3 years.
Yeah, your junior league, your junior year. So if the college football NCAA will not do that, I know basketball and the NBA is trying to figure out ways for these guys to go and play in the G League, where it'll help their G League out. It'll bring in more revenue for TV deals and all that other stuff, where they can make money off the TV deals. The kids can make money and endorsements. I think this is a good idea, and I think it will drive a lot of these young student athletes from high school to go and play college ball for at least a year and make some money. Or some of these football players that are complaining that they're not getting anything for the TV deals or the ball game deals, that they're making millions and millions of dollars, where they can get something out of it too. So I think this is a very good deal, and I think they absolutely should approve of it.
Now, what worries me as well with this is not the big names, because the big names, like you're saying, if LeBron James was a college basketball basketball player, yes, you'd have a ton of sponsorships, ton of jersey sales, whatever. It's more of anything else that breaks out. Players of schools that aren't really as big, are they going to start getting jealous too? And that's what worries me in terms of getting more scandals involved and stuff like that too. So it's definitely a two-front battle.
There's always going to be scandals in college basketball, football, baseball. There's always going to be scandals because this has been going on for years. These players have been making money for years. Everybody makes it seem like this isn't going on for years and years and years. It's been going on since the 70s, the 60s, where there are schools and endorsers paying these guys to wave their products out there, or when they're ready to go into the NBA or the NFL, where they're going to make money off endorsements by promoting their deals because they already have deals when they're in high school or college.
I think Dick Stockton, when we had him on, was mentioning the 1981, I believe it was, the Villanova team that got into a lot of trouble with their scholarships, the way they brought him in with the pay to play kind of thing. He thinks that was, I think he said that was one of the first times he ever saw something like that. So it definitely has been going on a while, and probably
for years.
And probably again, half the cases haven't even been not investigated, but haven't been caught in terms of proving it yet that we don't know about. And again, the NCAA will still be able to investigate. I mean, Louisville, they only got caught, I think, 4 years later or something like that in 2017 for their 13 title with the whole Rick Pitino thing. So I just think there could be more of that. And again, I don't want the student athlete.
So you're telling me that the players shouldn't get any money?
Well, no, I'm not saying they shouldn't. I think if you deserve the money, and again, you are that talented player, you can get the money. I'm just worried about, because it's such a big entity, the NCAA. It's not just, again, 20 teams. It's 300 plus schools, where again that could lead to other things and could lead to a lot of sketchiness within, again, black market stuff. We saw that what happened with Nike, anything like that. It worries me about the other ones that, again, think they deserve the sponsorships and aren't getting them, is what I'm more worried about.
Well, again, if these players aren't getting something out of going to play college ball, they're going to go and play college ball for 1 year and get nothing out of it. They're not going to get their college education, and then they wind up going into the NBA or the we'll talk about the NBA, because the NFL, you have to play 2 years of collegiate football before you can absolutely put yourself as a prospect in the NFL. But again, my argument is that the NBA is trying to find ways for these kids to go and play in the G League so they don't go and play in the NCAA, and where they can make money off endorsements and sales off of their jerseys right now instead of waiting a year until they get drafted for an NBA team. So I think this is a very, very good idea. Hopefully it gets approved, because I've been saying that players, college players, should be getting paid or getting something out of going and playing for a school. They're making all that money and all that publicity sponsorships for that school, and they're getting nothing out of it. Mm-hmm. Nothing.
And I think the royalties will be a suitable amount too, depending on how popular you are, how talented you are too. So I don't think it would be enough where they could get themselves in trouble or anything like that, because that was my main worry when we were having that argument about the pay-to-play thing. But in terms of, again, every sport doing it, remember, the separate entities are not a thing. The NCAA is governing for everything. So even if basketball is doing it, that doesn't mean the other sports will follow just because they don't have another minor league type thing. So that's the other thing that you have to look at. Is it going to be just a basketball thing where, again, other sports are going to start trying to do different things to manipulate their players getting paid? I just think there's too many athletes where it's going to lead to some problems too, even though, again, some will benefit.
Well, I definitely, my argument here, and we will see what's going to happen if this does get approved, but I believe it should get approved, and I really do believe that the NCAA have to give something back to these players that are only going over there and playing 1 year of collegiate basketball, and some of these football players that are superstar players that can blow their knees out, or something happens in college football where they never get a chance to play professional football again. So to me, I think that these players should get something out of going to college, especially if they're not getting an education.
For Jalen Hurts, I thought it was a reach in the second round.
I didn't.
I think in terms of...
Thought it was a good move.
Yeah, but it's that early, I don't think so. I understand you want to have a better backup quarterback than what they've had with Nate Sudfeld, and then they had a little stretch with Josh McCown after he retired. So, I mean, you weren't going to get a lot out of those guys. And then when Wentz came back, the Eagles had a nice run at the end of the season to get into the playoffs. But I understand you want to have a better backup quarterback, but again, the second round is you still want to get good value pick. You want to get good starters on your team. The Eagles, again, they addressed the receiver position nicely in the first round and even throughout free agency, but they still needed some help on defense, whether it was a linebacker, whether it was a corner. I think there were a lot of better value, and especially with all the weird value that fell in the second round too.
But you see that every year, that the value picks, there's so many value picks later, and that's why they say your best part of your draft is in the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th rounds. Most of those players become starters on your team. It's not the 1st and the 2nd and the 3rd round draft picks like everybody thinks.
Right, but regardless, teams that draft well still have to get hit on those picks as well.
Christopher's writing something right now. The Eagles are in the same spot the Bears were before they signed Foles. Now the question becomes, do they bring in a veteran like Dalton or Cam Newton on a 1-year prove-it deal?
See, once you draft Hurts, I think at that point you have to stay fully committed. If they didn't draft Hurts, yeah, maybe.
Jalen Hurts is the future starting quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles. I absolutely believe it.
You could maybe bring him in if that was the case, but I think with Hurts, again, being kind of similar to what Cam Newton is, I think that would have been interesting. And it's interesting because I actually thought if Cam Newton's stock fell where maybe teams weren't going to be having him as a starter, the Eagles were one of the spots I actually had him going as potentially a backup for Wentz just because of them being very similar type quarterbacks. They're both sophisticated throwers. They're both good runners, throwers on the run kind of thing. But again, now that they did that, I think they're committed to Hurts at this point. And I don't think you want to carry 3 quarterbacks on your roster when the Eagles, and you look at their depth and the players that they had step up for them last year, they want to carry all that depth and being one of the best rosters in the NFL into the season, too.
I think it was a good move by the Philadelphia Eagles because you don't know what Carson Wentz is anymore. Carson Wentz tore his ACL, his MCL, practically his whole knee. He has not been the same quarterback. That's why Foles became the starting quarterback of the team. He won a Super Bowl. They decided to trade him away, and they got something back for him. I mean, but again, when you look at Carson Wentz and where Carson Wentz is in his career, it's a make or break year for Carson Wentz. If Carson Wentz doesn't take this team to the promised land where everybody saw Foles do, I think this could be the last year you see Carson Wentz as the starting quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, right now he's on a contract that's going to be hard to move. So
I don't think so. I don't think there are a lot of teams that would absolutely bring in Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz is still, to me, a top 10 quarterback in this league. The problem with Carson Wentz is he hasn't proved it really since he's taken back the starting quarterback position. Jalen Hurts is a guy that I believe they think could take over for Carson Wentz. They paid him a lot of money. Carson Wentz got a lot of money.
Right. That's why I think it's going to be a hard contract to move where being there's not a lot.
For the amount of money some of these quarterbacks are going to get made, some of these quarterbacks could make. I mean, Dak Prescott wants $40 million. Some of these quarterbacks, these young quarterbacks like Josh Allen and Sam Darnold, that's the money they're going to get. You can get Carson Wentz on the cheap right now. That's a cheap deal. That's a cheap deal for what some of these quarterbacks are going to make now.
It's almost $30 million a year. I don't know if that's on the cheap necessarily.
Really? Because now you're hearing that the next type of quarterbacks that are going to get big time contracts are going to make $35 to $40 million.
Okay, that's fair to an extent. But again, if you're gambling, let's say you're the Cowboys, if you're gambling on giving Dak maybe $5 million more or gambling on Wentz, I'd gamble on the healthier Dak if you're going to do that. Rather than having to trade draft stock, which you're going to have to give up. And I mean, yeah.
So you're going to pay Dak Prescott between $35 and $40 million. You're already paying him close to $30 million because you franchised him this year. That's what he's getting. He's getting close, $29 million.
And I'm not saying I would pay Dak, but I'm saying if it came down to trading for Wentz, we might have to give up a second-round pick, a third-round pick.
I don't know about that.
Taking it only
I
for
don't know
only,
about that. Probably a third, maybe a second, a late second, and maybe a fourth-round pick.
Okay, but again, that's still draft stock that you could use to build the rest of your team. We were talking about all the times how the Cowboys lost a lot on their defense, and they lost a lot on their offensive line. And again, for injury-prone quarterback who played behind a great offensive line in Philadelphia, that is not a good sign. I mean, when you look at what teams are going to value, they value their draft stock more. They value young players, affordable players, and I think that's going to be hard for them to do. Plus, again, there's really not a lot of spots where that kind of quarterback is needed. There's a reason Cam Newton and Andy Dalton and guys like that who were good quarterbacks. Cam Newton was a great quarterback in his prime. They haven't been signed yet. There's not a lot of spots.
Well, hold
right
on one
now.
second. Cam Newton hasn't been signed because Cam Newton doesn't want to be signed. I will bet you by next week Cam Newton will have a team and he will be playing for a team and he'll be the starting quarterback for that team next week because
Sure, but
he's not going to be a backup quarterback in the league. And I do believe there will be a team out there that are going to offer him at least 2 or 3 year deal where it's going to bring him in. I still think the Chargers could be the team.